Happy Friday, Miami. This is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami, a real estate podcast by locals discussing what's going on in the South Florida real estate market. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm an expert witness, also the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. I'm joined here by my partner, the co-host, the moderator of this week's episode and all episodes, no one else but Daniel Hernandez. He's a real estate advisor over at Compass Real Estate over in Coconut Grove. He does single family houses as well as condos. Happy 2026, Daniel, and happy Henry Flagler birthday.
Happy Henry Flagler birthday. Who is Henry Flagler anyway, Peter?
Old man Flagler, the guy who ran the logistics for Standard Oil, and a guy called John D. Rockefeller. He cashed out of the oil business, took his cash, and built a train all the way down to Key West. Well, it lasted for a little while before it went sideways. But anyways, in 1830, on this day, January the 2nd, Henry Flagler was born in upstate New York, but he made his money in Cleveland, and he ultimately came to Florida, and his name is everywhere throughout the Sunshine State.
Everywhere throughout the Sunshine State. He's the one who built the railroad all the way to Key West, right? Florida East Coast Railroad. Key West.
Yep.
How long was that taken if you boarded it from New York and you took it all the way to Key West?
Oh boy. Well,
days, huh?
I'm sure it would have taken days, if not weeks, and they didn't even have TSA. Just imagine if they had TSA back then when you got on in New York.
I don't think anybody was blowing up trains either.
Exactly.
Well, anyway, folks, this is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. Happy New Year, by the way, 2026. It is January 2nd, and it is episode 33. Peter and I are jumping straight into the new year. If I'm sounding a little snorkely, it's because I am. Because on New Year's Eve, it was like the coldest New Year's Eve in Miami in I don't know how many years. 100 years since Wall Street of the South the moniker was claimed in the 1920s, as we constantly like to bring up. But if you're just joining us for the first time today, if your New Year's resolution was to get a little more educated about real estate, and your mom sent this to you or my dad sent this to you, welcome. And so in Buy, Sell, Hold Miami, Peter and I powwow stories back and forth and back and forth and back and forth throughout the week. And then we get together every Friday at 4 o'clock. And this is the show. We powwow these things. We powwow policy. We powwow education. We powwow affordability, because all of these things back in to Miami real estate. And we buy or we sell or we hold our rundown topics, which if you're watching is that little list at the bottom of your screen there. And then we come to a conclusion. If we agree, we buy it. If we don't agree with it, we sell it. And if we don't know, we just hold it. So with that, Peter, I want to jump into the rundown today. And we're going to talk about our friends up in Tallahassee, the House Legislature. HB 657 is a developer's dream come true. Peter, did you look into what this was concerning? It was an act relating to community associations.
Yeah, I'm going to let you take the lead on that because I only know condos. When it comes to the other stuff, it's a little bit outside of my expertise.
Okay, so this proposed legislation, right? This would authorize HOAs to be terminated, and we talk about condo terminations on this show frequently, but HOAs aren't just about condos. HOAs, the single-family home HOAs, which are prevalent throughout the country. Some people hate their HOAs. I would argue most people hate their HOAs. And that's the whole point of this bill, because to terminate an HOA, say you live in a development community with 300 homes or even 3,000 homes, like the Hammocks. The Hammocks has been in the news because of that fraud. But to terminate one of those associations, it's opaque, it's murky. We don't really know how to do it. And this proposed bill would make that a very easy process. And the process would be the following. If 20% of the HOA, if the owners in the HOA vote to terminate, and then I think it's a petition, so 20% have to put a petition forward, and then a supermajority, 66%, vote to terminate it, then that's it. The HOA is terminated. But I want to peel back the layers of the onion and sort of talk about what the implications of that might be. So, okay, you terminate the HOA, but who now pays for the maintenance of the roads in the HOA, or the security in the HOA, or the landscaping? Because all of those shared costs go into supporting that community. And then further, what does that say about the redevelopment of certain homes within that HOA? Because, I'm sure many HOAs have very strict rules about what you can and cannot do in terms of redeveloping your property. If there's no HOAs, now there's no aesthetic guidelines. You can't paint your door purple. You can't put, I think this was a big one. Somebody was posting around social media that one HOA somewhere in America was saying you could only put one Christmas decoration, one oversized Christmas decoration in your lawn. And so the residents, to respond to that, they found the largest, most obnoxious and haughty looking Christmas decoration just to sort of, give it to the HOA. But it shouldn't be contentious. These are your neighbors. These are supposed to be your friends. So this whole legislation would sort of pave a path to eliminate that. And I just think it's interesting.
It kind of reminds me, looking at it from afar, it reminds me of the cable package. We all had cable television. Well, if you remember, we all started off with TV. You watched regular TV, you had 4 channels, you had everything. And then all of a sudden they rolled in cable. And with cable, you had all these additional channels. And they started to add extra and add this and add that. And then what happened? People started to cut the cord. They started to break away from it. And then you had to pay for this app and that app. And at the end of the day, the number of apps you have might actually become pretty close to what you're actually paying on the cable side. So I'm not saying it's the exact same thing, but if you start stripping away stuff and then who pays for the road and who does this, and this particular association within an umbrella association gets to terminate, and then what if construction material has to be brought in and cement trucks and this and that, it sounds like this is going to be a complete headache. At the end of the day, it might be worthwhile, but I would hate to be the first one going in there and basically, blazing the trail, if you will.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't think our legislature necessarily thinks of the long-term consequences of a lot of their actions. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, and this would sort of be filed under the guinea pig section of new housing legislation.
One of the things that I've been told is the reason we have these homeowners associations, these organizations, these entities, is when developers were putting up stuff, the local municipalities basically didn't want to cover the roads. They don't want to cover the infrastructure, and as a result, the only way to get around it was to create some of these HOAs. And because of that, it was all kind of put in places, all put behind a wall. I'm somebody who doesn't like living in a gated community. I'm somebody who hates visiting a gated community. You have to go through the security. It takes forever. Everybody knows this, everybody knows that, everybody's entitled, complete headache. So if you ask me, generally speaking, philosophically, wipe away all the HOAs. I liked it better when you just had block after block after block, and you had neighborhoods rather than these gated communities, these fortress that when you get down to what I call Kendallandia, you can't tell the difference between one and the other. It could be Jacaranda number 1, Jacaranda number 2, Jacaranda number 12. It's all kind of the same. Let's get back to some sort of uniqueness rather than these cookie cutter communities. And if that means getting rid of HOAs, sign me up.
Well, it's something else to think about. We always talk about the shift of power from the municipalities to Tallahassee. Now, these HOAs, the maintenance for the roads, the light posts, all that stuff, all of that is absorbed by the HOA dues, the HOA fees, and that's on top of your taxes. So what happens if Jacaranda 1, 2, there's just to name a few of them, but there's a bazillion of them. What if all of a sudden, poof, HOA gets dissolved, and now taxpayers that don't live in that community now have to support that community? That's what this sounds like.
Well, it sounds like Brexit, just to be honest with you. The United Kingdom was part of the EU, and then all of a sudden they had a vote, very close vote. Next thing you know, they got to extract themselves from it. That starts to get very complicated, and then you got to cut separate agreements for this and that. And then, do you need easements? Do you need an easement if you were to break up a homeowner association where one group maybe was partitioned out, but there's a common road? Do you need an easement then to get in there? This is going to get so confusing. You know who's going to make the money on it? The professional service people, because there's going to be lawsuits, because there's going to be paperwork that's required, because there's going to be lobbying. Hey, let me throw out a different idea. Why don't we take these HOAs, many of which are in unincorporated, Miami-Dade County is what I'm thinking of. Why don't we have them create cities or villages and let them kind of manage themselves? And they already have the walls up. I mean, who's to say? Daniel, what do we have in Miami-Dade County? 34 municipalities?
34
Why don't you make it like
municipalities.
Yeah, make it like 340. Give every HOA their own ability to create a municipality and then go out and hire police, hire firefighters, hire this, hire that. And at the end of the day, you're going to get back to the unbundling of the cable package where you get the individual apps. And then at the end of the day, it's probably going to be a push, to be honest with you. But the
So,
decision is, but the question is who makes the decision on what to do and what not to do. And I think that's really what it's all about. It's about the power structure.
well, the bill that's being proposed would put it to the courts. So if there's any problems, it would go to a court that would, well, make a ruling. And so would that put an additional strain on the municipal courts here? I think yes.
And remember,
So,
a lot of our judges are elected. So just imagine how this thing can blow up in the state of Florida, where not everything is necessarily as it appears to be.
but is it a better option than the current state, which you have these HOA boards? A lot of them are perfectly fine, but a lot of them are corrupt. They largely aren't salaried employees. So you're just a pensioner, 70-year-old dude with nothing to do, and you got to power, like you want that ego, you got to power grab. And now you can manage your little fiefdom of Jacaranda number one. I'm just saying Jacaranda number one because it's the first thing that keeps on coming to my head. But removing that power from that person, that might be sort of a difficult thing to do.
I don't know how they would remove it. I don't know. More importantly, I don't know how they would enforce it. For instance, let me just give you an example from the world I know, which is the condo world. A lot of people will go and they'll file a complaint with the state of Florida and they'll complain to the Division of Condominiums, Mobile Homes, and Timeshares. And what they'll find is after a year or so, they still haven't gotten a response. The government's not actually doing anything, so it falls upon them to be able to do everything. So even if we break this up, even if you go through the court system, it's probably still going to be delayed behind layers of bureaucracy and the process. It might seem like a silver bullet, but at the end of the day, if you don't want to deal with the HOA issue, don't buy in an HOA. Don't buy in a gated community, and chances are you're going to be fine.
But that's increasingly difficult to do, more and more difficult to do. It seems like everything's an HOA. I mean, granted,
Yeah.
we live in certain municipalities, city of Miami. You live in city of Miami. I live in Coral Gables. I don't think there's any single family home HOAs in Coral Gables. But if you go, inland, you go to Winter Park, you go to all these places inside of Florida and throughout the country, HOAs are rampant because, and again, I'm just going to say the first developer that comes to mind, a Lennar or Orion Homes even. They build these massive developments and then they form HOAs. Partly because it allows them to bond out a lot of their infrastructure costs that, we've talked about this in shows in the past. Residents, owners in that HOA wind up having to pay for years and years and years on top of their taxes and on top of their HOA fees.
I'm not a believer in HOAs personally. I like the old school way. I like to keep it simple way. I'm sure this is going to be a hell of a shit show going forward as it goes forward. Obviously, this representative, and I think I met him. I think I heard him speak in Durrell probably about 4 or 5 months ago, talking about this particular plan. And I will tell you, and if this is the same representative that I think it is, there must have been about 400 people in the crowd, and the number of people queuing up in order to ask him a question, it had to be 10 to 20% of the room. So this is obviously a hot button topic. This is obviously a subject that's really close to everybody's hearts. I don't know how you get it resolved because at the end of the day, everybody has an opinion, but yet nobody can agree on anything. So maybe it goes forward, maybe it gets passed, but does it actually get put into place and implemented? That's the real question. And if it is implemented, who's going to enforce it? Because like we know on the condo side, when you complain, takes the government forever and ever and ever to get back to you if in fact they do, based on what people have told me.
All right, so buy, sell, hold on HB 657.
Yeah, I would be a buy just for shits and giggles. 2026. Let's try to improve the
You're just
situation.
a spectator. You just want to watch the show.
We need to make up for the change in the city of Miami government because we've lost so many crucial individuals on the city of Miami government. We're not going to have the same fund. So maybe it comes from the HOA world. Maybe that's how I'll get some of my shits and giggles.
All right, you're a buy. I'm a hold on it. I don't know. That's the whole point. If you're just joining us for today, I can hold and it's okay. I'm holding. Moving on. Uh, Peter Zalewski, the condo bull? Is your name? Hey, your name is Peter Zalewski, isn't it?
Yes, my name is Peter Zalewski, and I am a bull in 2026. If you remember, I said that a few weeks back. I am a bull. So I want people to recognize that, even though there's a lot of people out there saying, hey, he's a bear, he's a bear, he's a bear. No, I'm a bull in 2026.
So this points back to an article that came out from the Herald a week or so ago. We're talking about there's all this national press talking about how the condo market is just shout. I don't have the sound effects, so I'm just gonna have to make my own. But there are a few segments, and when I say there are a few market segments, I'm talking to the people who always ask us, and I'm sure Peter gets asked this all the time too. How's the market down in Miami? And the retort that we have to keep on saying, like we're a broken record. Well, which market are you talking about? The condo market, single family home market, what price threshold in each of those markets? Are we in Miami Beach? Are we in Sunrise? Right? There's all these different markets, and it's really difficult to just throw a blanket statement over all of them. But in this Miami Herald article, they talk about one particular segment that Peter talks about a lot, and it's these $200,000 to $400,000 condos, right? And in that market, it's up 21% year over year, November to November. Okay, and then 1 million and up. And for single family home and condos, I'm not sure why they extrapolated both single family home and condos, but in $1 million and up, total home and condo sales rose 13.2%. And then they go back to just condos. So just condos, 2.5 million and up, jumped over 27% year over year. So the part of the market they didn't mention, because I would imagine they did not have a year over year upward trend, is that 400,000 to $1 million market. And I think a lot of those are the vintage 30-year plus older condos that we're talking about. And the budgeting and the assessments, we haven't really seen that completely play through yet. I don't think that market's dead forever, but right now there's sort of this financial uncertainty in that sector. What are you seeing, Peter?
Oh, no, I think there's plenty of certainty. The certainty is condo
Ah,
living is expensive. It's getting more expensive, and it will continue to be expensive for the next 2 to 3 years. No question. Even though an insurance agent told me that you're probably going to see a 40% pullback in insurance premiums. Why? Because now that the buildings are starting to study and figure out what's wrong, and they're moving forward and starting to work on it, that is bringing rates down, premiums down for insurance, as did the fact that we had a calm hurricane season this recent year. So that's maybe the good news. The bad news is that as of this month, January, now these condo associations have to either start collecting money for reserves or they need to take out a loan to pay for the work that was identified during the course of the structural integrity reserve studies, which come every 10 years, or the milestone inspections, which come at year 30. So what that means is everybody's cost is higher. And as a result of that, the people who don't think they can last, they are heading for the exits.
heading for the exits. That sounds awful. You don't, but wait, you don't think that now with the new condo transparency laws and everything post Surfside is sort of like in condo speak, our Miami real estate post 9/11. So post Surfside, we have all these new condo regulations and these transparency laws. I mean, to even transact in a condo now, we have to deliver meeting minutes. That's how granular we've gotten with the data. I mean, Peter, when you wanted to buy a condo 5 years ago, how hard was it to get budget data and financial data from these HOAs?
Uh, they've never been forthcoming with that type of information. Supposedly, they have to make it
They
available.
have to now, though. It's
Yeah,
statutory.
yeah, yeah. But it's always you always kind of sort of have to beg the associations. Now they're making it more readily available, but keep in mind they want to hide the information because it will give people a glimpse as to what's really going on, and then you can analyze these condo associations, and then suddenly the smell of the lobby or how beautiful the view is, it gets overwhelmed by what the real financial aspect is of these condo associations, and that is the rub. Daniel, we did a tour 2 weeks ago, and the tour basically I ran the Brickell Avenue area numbers, and what I found is you are seeing condos today asking prices below what these units traded for in the summer, and that's in the Brickell Avenue area, which I would say is the most popular area down here in the Miami-Dade
And
County.
is
Used
that
to be
for all
South Beach,
condos or is
now it's
that
Brickell.
vintage?
No, that's all condos. 20 of 80 projects. The asking price today is less than what they were in the summer, and our summer goes from May through October. But what I also did is I looked year over year over year, looking at summer buying seasons, and what you found is that sales were down somewhere in the vicinity of, I don't know, 10, 12%. Price per door was down about 18%, and price per foot was down about 9%. So you're already starting to see people looking to exit. Why? I think because they can't afford these condo associations going forward because of all the necessary work that should have been done years ago. It was simply deferred, and now suddenly you have to play catch up. Why? Because you did these mandatory studies done by licensed architects, licensed engineers. They've identified the problem, and now all of a sudden the bill's coming due, and the bill begins to be collected today in January of 2026.
You think that with these assessments coming through, and we talked a little bit about insurance in previous weeks, now that the insurance is normalizing, I've spoken to clients who, for the first time in the history of their condo ownership, they've actually seen their insurance fall.
Yes, which is what that insurance agent had told me. And the reason it's falling is not that the work is done on these buildings, but studies have been done, and associations now are signing contracts to get the work done. And the insurance companies are giving the associations the benefit of doubt that they have a construction or restoration contract signed. So therefore, they're simply providing them with that type of situation. And there's more and more competition of groups coming in here who see how lucrative this can be if you are an insurer and you kind of understand what your marketplace is. So those are some of the factors. But the end of the day, it's cheaper to rent than it is to own a condo, and that is the rub that we have not yet been able to overcome. And that's really what the push is. And if you got called back to Wall Street, if you got called back to Silicon Valley after 2021, where you could come down here and work from home and didn't have to wear a mask, the dynamics are changing. They're changing dramatically. So I continue to see people heading for the exits. They're probably going to really start to cut bait once we get past the Coconut Grove Arts Festival and the Miami Beach Boat Show, which is the middle of February, and also the symbolic halfway point to the popular winter buying season down here from November through April.
Peter Zalewski, the condo bull. You're my buddy, you're my pal, you're my co-host. I'm buying everything you're saying. Can you listen to yourself?
Yeah, I would be a pound the table buy on that.
That Peter Zalewski, he's a smart guy. So the attainable condo is the future. And South Florida Business Journal put this article out a few weeks back, and it wasn't the first time that I had read the word attainable in terms of real estate. We've heard affordable, which is not synonymous with workforce, which I think they're trying to make workforce synonymous with attainable. I guess it's just like the more PC way of saying workforce housing. It's attainable. You can afford it if you're just a normal person. And so we're seeing now developers, well, building a lot of this attainable product. And we're talking about things that are trading for 450, 550, 750 on the high end per square foot in pre-construction. So this is something that somebody currently living in workforce housing, making up to about $105,000 a year, who wants to convert into an owner, could actually attain, hence attainable condos. And Swerdlow's doing this in Little River, Related's doing this up in Broward. They're doing this in places where the dirt is cheap enough that the economic model works. And they're not building high rises because those are very costly. They're building 5, 7, 8, 9-story buildings to keep their construction costs down, and then they're utilizing all the tools in their developer toolbox, adding a workforce apartment building next door, and so they're getting all of these bonuses to drive that cost down for the eventual condo owners.
And I mean, listen, attainable. Markets always take over. If in fact we see a pullback in pricing, everything is going to be attainable. I sat down on a panel with the mayor of Miami-Dade County about a little bit over a year ago or so, and we were speaking, and somebody asked me about the workforce housing and attainable housing. And I basically said, let the market play it out, because once the market retreats, it heads back to where some sort of normalcy, real normalcy and pricing, everything suddenly becomes attainable. If you remember after the Great Recession, maybe you remember, maybe you don't, in terms of the audience, if they weren't here, rents were so damn cheap. You didn't deal with workforce housing. It's only when we get way past our skis that suddenly this becomes an issue. And then you know what happens? There tends to be a correction. There tends to be some sort of improvement. And then nobody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about how cheap it is, and landlords are bitching and moaning because they're in for this, but yet things are renting for that. So I'm a big believer in the free market. The Attainable issue, whether they're using that name or workforce or whatever, it's just a matter of the market. Thus far, the market's been a little bit prolonged. It should have already corrected, but I think that's where we're headed. And I think we're not going to be talking about Attainable going forward. We're going to be talking about what. Oh, wow, I'm getting great value, and I really think that is the future on the condo side. And the big cause, in my opinion, is not going to be the financing side, which it was like the last time during the Great Recession. It's going to be the cost of these condos. There are going to be people who are going to have to exit them at a deep discount, and the new money coming in, they're the ones who are going to make it attainable for them because of the discount, the haircut that's going to need to be taken by the seller, in my
But
opinion.
you're talking about existing product, right?
Well, existing product, but potentially new product, because what happens is, my opinion, once the market goes down, land has no value. It has no value. You can't do anything. It's like oil right after the pandemic hit. Remember, oil was trading for negative $34 a barrel or whatever the hell it was because they didn't think there
It
was going
was
to be a
too
need for
costly to
oil.
hold it. Right.
Yeah, it was too costly to hold it. So what happens is when the market goes bad, these developers who are stuck with dirt and they thought they were going to do this and sell for $1,000 or $2,000 a foot, they can't do anything with it. This is going back to the Wynwood Yard. Wynwood Yard was a piece of dirt on 29th in Miami Avenue over in the Wynwood area of Greater Downtown Miami. Market went to hell. These guys didn't know what the hell to do with the dirt. It was costing them money month after month after month, debt service, real estate taxes, insurance, fencing, all this type of stuff. So what did they do? They got permits to be able to sell liquor. Then they brought in a bunch of food trucks, old school way of calling it a roach coach. They brought in these things. They sold food, they sold beer, and they were able to generate some revenue. But when the market goes sideways and there's no vision or future of building anytime soon, developers can't do anything with, so the land plummets. And what does that mean? That means new money is able to come in, buy the dirt at a reasonable price, and now they can begin the process again. So the party has played out, the music's getting turned off, everybody's got a hangover, they picked up whoever they're picking up and taking home. Now we're getting to the point where we're going to have to begin the cleanup, and then attainable will no longer be an issue, in my opinion.
Well, so I'm going to point to the South Florida Business Journal story. They're talking about a lot of folks who are they already bought the dirt, so they got the dirt, and the idea was I'm going to make apartments, but with the slow rent growth here, which is it's abysmally slow because there's so much new product coming into the market, they're thinking, well, shit, it's going to be really difficult for us to raise capital to build this apartment building. Let's shift and let's do it as a condo. We'll have to spend a little bit more money to make nicer amenities. We'll throw a cold plunge in there. But what they're able to do, Peter, is that they're able to finance part of the construction with deposits. You're
In
shaking your head.
theory, yes. In theory, Elon
But they
Musk is
still
pulling
got to
apart.
pre-sell 40, 50, 60% of that to even get there.
I mean, listen, you only result or you only end up at this spot because you can't figure out another way to kind of make the numbers work. Understand, developer, if you are owning dirt and you overpaid, you need to figure out what to do, whether it's bringing in food trucks and trying to generate revenue or it's dumping the dirt or trying to JV. But I'm telling you, that land cost is going to be going lower and lower and lower as we go forward. And why is that going to happen? Well, affordability is a big issue. People can't go in, they can't buy this stuff. Increasingly, you're seeing for rent signs everywhere. I told you a month ago or so, I was shopping these rental projects, and what I was finding is traditionally in South Florida, when you go to rent a place, you have to pay your first month rent. You have to pay your last month rent. And you have to pay security. You know what they were asking for, Daniel? I don't know if you
Thousand
remember.
bucks, right?
$1,000 security in the first month. That was it. And if you had a broker come in and work with you, they'd pay $1,000 commission. So in theory, you could get in that place by simply paying the first month rent. That is not a strong market, but we're never going to know because that information is not readily available. Rental data is really bad, but anecdotally, it seems as if the rental market is soft, and that's why these would-be developers that you're talking about, or the software business journal is talking about, in terms of going condo, maybe they're rental people and they're trying to go condo side, but it doesn't matter which side you look at. They're on the wrong side of the trade. So now they either need to sell the dirt or they need to bring in food trucks or something in order to generate revenue because it's going to be a little bit tough time next year or two.
So if you were a buyer today, let me ask you, and I know you're not a buyer, but if you were, and this is for our buyers out there looking for that 700, 800, $900,000 condo, would you buy pre-construction in one of these attainable developments because it's new and it's shiny and it's nice, or would you take the discount and buy in one of these vintage condos?
So if you're going to go new construction, make sure you check out the developer. The developer, in my opinion, should have at least 3 deals under their belt. They need to have the battle scars to know how to get through this. If this is their first project, chances are it's going to go sideways. You're going to end up possibly in over across from the Dade County Courthouse. You end up in the Southern Bankruptcy Court, the Bankruptcy Court of the Southern District of Florida. Why? Because if you put your money down and the project goes sideways, you become a creditor. Good luck getting anything more than your
Right.
10%, and check with your attorney. They'll give you the details. So if you're going in pre-construction at this point, make sure the developer has built before. They have a track record. Why? Because developers are habitual offenders. They do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. But if it were me, I would look at a vintage condo in a location you're very comfortable with that has a signed either structural integrity reserve study and or a milestone inspection. Some architect or some engineer whose license has looked at it, they've given an assessment, they've given a roadmap for the next 10 years, what's going to cost to fix, what needs to be fixed. Now you have the peace of mind, at least going forward, that you have real-time actionable information. That to me makes a lot more sense than pre-construction. And keep in mind, as pre-construction sales start to slow and dwindle, what's going to happen is those people who actually do have a deposit down, they're going to be jammed up and they will not be able to get access to the cash, and they probably are going to miss out on an opportunity that might be coming downstream real quick as we see a pullback in pricing.
All right, so the attainable condo is the future. I'm a buy.
I'm a buy it's going to be attainable. I just don't think it's going to be attainable in the way that these developers think it will be.
So you think it's a losing game for the developer, but a winning game for the buyers?
Yeah, no, the developer should have got out. I mean, let's point to Swire Properties. Swire Properties is a big developer. They got Brickell Key. They did Brickell City Center. They're dumping Crescent Heights. Crescent Heights sold its headquarters. They're a condo developer or condo converter. 22nd Biscayne, they dump. When locals sell, take their lead. Don't follow the newbie who doesn't know anything about this marketplace. Remember, developer needs to do 3 projects in order to understand this marketplace. Other than that, they're still like a rookie. They're on the JV team, and do not take a chance in a market that is facing serious headwinds right now.
All right. Well, speaking of developers who have done at least three, I think your boy Old Man Morris has done way more than three, and he just got a $138 million construction loan for the Ziggurat, which is his. I think actually his son is the one quarterbacking this. So Spencer Morris, Alan Morris's son, has the Ziggurat, which is this condo, retail, office, super luxury there in Coconut Grove. I'm going to bring it up for the gang just so we can see what we're talking about. And it's right here, right across from the Kirk Monroe Tennis Center. You know the old dry cleaners there in Coconut Grove where the post office is? Well, they assembled the whole block, obviously not the post office, because that still operates in the United States, by the way, opposed to what you might hear. So they assembled this whole like L here, right? So you see the last carat, Sapore di Mare. They've relocated or absorbed some of these businesses into the new development, but we're talking 18 luxury units. I spoke to somebody there. The cheapest one they got still, Peter, is a 2-2 and a den for 3.7 million at like 1,800 square feet. So coming in around $2,000 a square foot. They got 100,000 square feet of luxury office space and retail. And so this, we talk about the Grove a lot in this show because, well, we live close by, and because it's one of the hottest zip codes in the country in terms of appreciation over the last 3 or 4 years. But if you look at most of what's in the Grove, it's old, right? And I'm talking office and retail. We see 20, 30, $100 million property just traded last week there in Coconut Grove. But in terms of new retail and new office, this is sort of a pioneer in the Grove, given the 21st century. So what do you think about luxury? So we were just talking about attainable. Now we're looking at the other side of the coin here. Do you think that there's enough demand for it. Ugo just delivered Vita. By the way, he just sold one of those penthouses that you said he was never going to sell for $16 million. Somebody took it off his hands. But people love the Grove. People who want to live in the Grove seem to have enough money. Do they have the stomach for $2,000 square foot units?
Let's go back to Alan Morris and sort of their history. So Alan Morris's father, I guess, put up the first office building effectively on Brickell Avenue, and it actually still stands there today. It then was converted into condo offices. Alan took over. He's done a bunch of different things. He put up that office tower in Coral Gables that's very comparable and similar to the Biltmore Hotel. It's got that it's like Sevilla, Spain design. Mediterranean type of design, and at some point he was involved with putting up the SLS Lux right there on Brickell Avenue in and around 8th Street and Miami Avenue or so. So now the son is sort of taking over and he's moving forward with this project. And really what this project is it's a hybrid. You're going to have the mixed use. So you're going to have some office space in there. You're going to have some condos. I think there's some retail space as well. So it's very well diversified. It's not over the top. If you want to try to get a higher price, you got to go lower density. You got to go much more unique units. They only make so many Rolexes or Bugattis or whatever the case may be, rather than mass producing it. So it seems like the fundamentals are well. The location is a great location. I don't know if it's this project or a sister project they're doing over in Coral Gables called Ponce Park.
That's
One of them
Ponce
just
Park.
Yeah, okay, that's got the financing. And I always say if a project gets the financing, some lender has gone through and checked the numbers, and probably what they're saying is real. Notoriously, developers, and I'm not speaking to Alan Morris on this project, but notoriously, developers talk out of both sides of their mouth. But if you actually have somebody running the numbers and actually financing it, that should give you a little bit more credibility in terms of the project going forward, other than people just simply barking and barking, trying to sell this product. Alan Morris and his son in putting up this project. I wish him well. I think their timing's a little bit challenging. I don't know if they're on the right side of the trade of this, but what I do know is they've been around for a long, long time. They know how to get it done. They're going to walk their way through it. They'll do whatever's necessary. And if worst case scenario, they have to backstop it with a check, I'm sure they'll be willing to do that. So in terms of delivering, I'm sure it'll go on as as good as it can. If the market does go sideways, they might actually benefit from the fact that other developers fall by the wayside, and then GCs tend to lower the prices as they go out and they search for work. They try to keep their teams of workers together. So the Morris family's smart. They know real estate. They'll probably figure out how to navigate it. Now, if this was somebody parachuting in and this was their first project, I would say pound the table, sell that damn thing. But this one, I'm probably going to have to sit and wait and see, and I'm probably going to have to be a hold, not because of their credibility, not because of the location, but simply from my outlook, my base case based on what I see in 2026.
Well, if two's a trend, looking at some other developers going along the same lines of these small but ultra luxury development, Old Man Raskin, he's got Opus, which is 14 units on 27th Avenue. He acquired, I think he paid about $10 million for a site off the water on Brickell Avenue right there by St. Jude. That's only going to be 38 units. So maybe he took a page out of Mr. Morris's book saying, hey, well, if Morris is going to be a little conservative with these luxury units, I can do this too. And so instead of biting off a piece of the apple too big to chew, as they say, they're, being a little less hair-raising about it. Only taking out a $30 million construction loan instead of a $330 million construction loan. I think it's a prudent thing to do, especially given the current market conditions.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with you. The only thing I would say though about the Morris projects is that they're mixed use, so they are going to be diversified a little bit. I'm not sure if Raskins actually has anything other than the residential component.
I don't think he has it at Opus. He might have it at Colette. That's a little bit bigger, but hey, we'll see. He's hired two banging sales teams to do it. I think he's got Serhant over in 27th. Angel Nichols moved over from Compass to work with Serhant. And I think he got Eklund Gomez to sell the Colette and Brickell for him. So if anybody can do it, it's those guys. And I do wish him well. I'm a buy on full steam ahead for boutique. Just not talking absolutely about the market, just relative to what I see other things people are doing, like 50-story, 200-unit, $2,500 a month, $2,500 a foot. Dude, if you haven't broken ground on this by now, who are you selling this stuff to?
There, you just nailed it right there. That's it. Drop the mic. Let's end this podcast because you just hit it right there, Daniel. Well done.
You've taught me well. What can I say? All right, I'm a buy. You sound like a hold, but we'll wait and see.
I'm a hold, not because of quality, not because of developer pedigree, but more so because of timing and what my base case is going forward, which is prices falling, and that's why I'm bullish.
Edgewater's Resiliency Fund is a fantastic idea. If you're just joining us for the first time, I think we've talked about this before, but over in Edgewater, and I'm going to bring up Edgewater for the gang here. It's a small community, small city of Miami community, just that butts up against the southern end of the Julia Tuttle. So we are east of Midtown, north of the Omni District, and south of the Julia Tuttle. So Wynwood's off to the west, Design District, and Buena Vista, and Mimo, as they call it, is up to the north. And it is on the water's edge. Well, we're here in Miami, Peter. When you're on water's edge, you have a tendency for some flooding. And that's been recognized amongst the community there. But there's a point of contention because developers want to build more units. Well, maybe somebody should look at the seawalls or the roads or the pump stations, and that is very costly. So the city of Miami has presented an idea. Commissioners deferred the vote till, I think, next Thursday, so next Thursday's commission meeting, to approve for this Edgewater Resiliency Trust. And if you're just joining us for the first time today, it would require developers to get this extra density. So I think they can do 150 units an acre here in Edgewater, and they would push that to 300 units an acre. But you would have to contribute $35,000 as the developer per door to achieve that. And I'm sure that cost is just going to be passed through to new condo owners. But it would bolster the flooding resiliency in the district, which if you've ever driven there during or for Peter, walk through there after a torrential downpour or one of those king tides, dude, you can be in I wouldn't say knee-high water, but above ankle water for sure.
100%. You nail that one, Daniel. It doesn't matter if you're right on the water either, because the water just sort of it
just
overflows.
Surges in. That's why it's called a surge.
Yep, it absolutely comes in, and that's why a lot of the newer buildings coming in, the first floor is all parking. They don't put anything there. In order to actually get to the entrance of some of these buildings and some of the retail spaces,
you got to go straight up.
You have to go up to the second. Yeah, you got to go up to the second floor because they know that this is a reality. This is kind of what we're dealing with going forward. This idea about taxing developers or giving them bonuses if they go ahead and put some cash down. I'd almost credit Philip Levine, the old man Levine, the mayor of Miami Beach, way back in the day. What was it, 15, 20 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, he came in and 2013 to 2017. So 10 years ago, he came in, he declared a state of emergency and used that state of emergency in order to go forward and build all kind of pumping stations in and around Sunset Harbor part of Miami Beach, as well as West Avenue. This seems like it's another way to kind of do it, but everybody's identifying and realizing and actually acknowledging in a state where you cannot say climate change, you cannot say global sea level rise. Well, they're acknowledging that
we say rain. We say rain.
Oh, we say rain. We say rain. Okay, rain. Yeah. But this is a way to sort of deal with what's happening. What I would venture to guess is that the ones who are going to benefit from it are the ones who are going to look to entitle the dirt. So you buy a piece of dirt, you pay the extra fees, whatever, you get it entitled for whatever it is. Now you turn around and you retrade it because the people buying downstream, they're going to pay based on how many units they can build. So this might actually be a great entitlement play for somebody who's a land banker. Go in there, pay the extra fees, and then you turn around and you dump it to somebody from out of town who doesn't know anything. They're simply running the numbers and saying, boy, this is a home run. Not like the Trump Presidential Library site where you don't have to build parking, you can do 1,000 units per acre, but this could actually be very good. Very, very, very good. In fact, you know what they ought to do? They ought to take that library, Put it right there on the bay on one of these sites and give them the 300 extra units and have the library and everything would be perfect.
And then NDC would get to keep their land?
Yeah, and then let MD. I mean, why not? We have a park right now, right on the bay. It's supposed to be a park, and we have a high-end restaurant in there. You drop $30 for a drink. So I mean, why not have a library? Or
Wait,
kick
are
the,
we
I'll tell
talking
you
about,
what,
we're not talking about Site B, or you're talking about Amara. You're talking about the Paradiso
Amara.
one,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes, yes. Put a library in there.
It would have to be a very small library, and he's so big.
Obviously, I'm being a little sarcastic on this, but ultimately, I applaud the movement to try to make something happen. I don't know if it's going to play out the way they want. Hopefully, it will. But this to me seems like a entitlement play for anybody who's a land banker. And remember, if the market goes sideways, like our base case is, land value goes down. If in fact you have this in place, you can pick up dirt cheap. You can entitle it, you can upzone it in theory, and then you can dump it for more. Much like what the gentleman did over at Midtown Miami. When the market went sideways, they picked up that dirt for a song. Then we're able to basically either JV or sell off the dirt. So watch for this and watch for the timing to play in. If the market goes sideways, land goes down in value, you acquire the land, you then piggyback on the $35,000 a door, or whatever the impact fee is to build a seawall. This could be a really good hustle for a number of years.
And it goes without saying, with all of these resiliency efforts, the property values, the relative property values in this area would go up. I mean, I can only imagine if developers wind up having to pay for this into this trust and they do the work, not at a cost of the current residents. I'm talking if you already own there, wouldn't that cause insurance in these buildings to go down? It can't go any higher than it is now.
I would imagine it would, yeah, 100%. But you know what would become worse? The traffic.
Well,
You imagine adding this,
but that's going to
the
happen
additional debt.
everywhere. And by the way, it's resiliency trust be damned. We always go back to this, but a developer could just come forward and say, "Hey, live local. I'm going to do it anyway." So developers don't need this tool. They can already build the density if they want it. City of Miami is just trying to figure out a way to fund this climate change mitigation. Because I mean, it's going to cost a ton of money. I mean, do the math. I think we did the math a few weeks ago, but for our first time viewers, how many units are they putting up here in the next 5 years? Conservatively, 3,000, 2,000?
Well, you mean you're talking about something brand new or something under construction currently, or something in the works right now?
Something in the works, pipeline.
Yeah, so in the Brickell Avenue area, and I don't have the Edgewater number handy, but Brickell Avenue is somewhere about 5,000 units.
All right, so let's say it's even half of that. Say it's 2,500 units times 35 grand. That's a cool $87.5 million. Now, would the developers eventually just pass this through to the condo owners, which gets passed through to the lender? Yeah, of course. But it's a solution to a very, very visible problem. And when I say visible, I'm talking about the water that's coming up to your shins. I'm a buy on it. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Too many cars? We already have too many cars. The traffic is awful there. If you take Biscayne between 2 and 5 o'clock, 2 and 6 o'clock on Biscayne, it's bumper to bumper all the way to the tunnel.
And then don't forget the morning between roughly 7:30.
Yeah, that's just half the rush hours. Yeah, totally.
Yep. Yeah, no, if you're living there, if you decide to buy in there, you're gonna have to walk. Yeah, if you're not walking, you're not getting around anywhere. And good luck ordering an Uber Eats or actually ordering an Uber because it takes so much longer. Now they might be right in the spot, but if they're actually gonna get from point A to point B, it takes forever. And if they wanted to solve it, all they had to do is add more railroad crossings rather than 20th, 28th, 29th, and effectively 36. That's all they have to do, and they could resolve the problem.
Add more railroad crossings? Wouldn't that cause more collisions?
Well, it might be more collisions, but then definitely the traffic, rather than all being like forced to go almost like an hourglass, which is what it has to do now on 20th, 28th, and 29th, as well as to the 36. So if you want to get on the other side of the tracks, there's only a few places you can get across, and that's what forces everybody to sort of bunch up, almost like an hourglass, if you think of it that way. They're all forced into one little area. They're funneled into one little area, and that adds to the traffic. But if you want a quality of life, Edgewater's not the place you're going. If you want a view, you're going to Edgewater. You want quality of life, you're probably going to Brickell, where you have many more things.
Yeah, but you're gonna pay more for it, right?
You're gonna pay more, and you're probably not getting a view. So
What
that's the
is
yin and the yang.
Edgewater even cheaper than downtown? I'm talking north of the river, south of 395. What were you at?
No,
1.2 a door in downtown?
yeah, it's probably cheaper to go into Edgewater area. Yep, yep.
I mean, it doesn't seem like a terrible thing if you want the water view, right? You get a little
No,
Vespa.
it's pretty much the only place you can go if you want a water view, or you're gonna have to buy something. Depending on where you go on right there in that central business district between the river and in the MacArthur Causeway. So, it could be pretty expensive. But if you want like pound for pound, dollar for dollar with a view, you probably want to be going to Edgewater. The problem is the traffic is so challenging versus Brickell, and you don't really get to walk in Edgewater
Well,
from my
because
perspective. I walk.
you're stuck in this triangle here, and that's what we're talking about. If everybody who's watching, you see the train tracks that
Yep.
just dissect this whole area here. That's what we're talking about, and there's only a handful of railroad crossings, so it's well, to take the words out of Peter's mouth, yeah, it's an hourglass. It's just a complete and utter clusterfuck, pardon my language, of a bottleneck.
Well, and listen, they could even do it at Midtown. So you're showing Midtown. If you zoom in there, Daniel, on Midtown, you'll even see to get across in Midtown, you can't. You have to
You
come in
have to
off
go all the
36th
way
Street,
around 36.
or you go down south to 29th. Now, why couldn't they simply add some crossings there just to alleviate the traffic, let the traffic sort of flow? Because right now, if you want to get into Midtown, you're either coming off 36th or you're coming off 29th, especially if you're coming from the east.
Right,
And
it's
that's the
15
problem.
blocks.
Yeah, and that's why everybody gets jammed up. They're all bumper to bumper. It's all congested, and there's the hourglass effect.
All right, so Resiliency Trust is a fantastic idea. Buy, sell, hold.
Yeah, I'd be a buy. Give them the benefit of the doubt.
You were almost all green today, Peter. Almost all green today. Almost all
But
green.
remember why I'm green. Remember why I'm going green, because I think prices are coming down.
Well, I'm a buy on it as well. That takes us to the end of our show. First one of the year, Peter. We got a big year for everybody. Big year for everybody. Plenty of stories, a lot of drama, a lot of policy. We got midterm elections coming up in the fall, but that's in like 10 months. We got so much to talk about this year, and I just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us your ear or your eyeballs if you're watching on one of the socials. And Peter and I look forward to seeing you guys every day, not every day, every Friday at 4 p.m. local time. Ciao. Thanks, Peter.